Hello. So today is day 4 of our 30 days of PM challenge. I am talking from the nonsense, and here we are trying to solve and look at the 30 days of PM challenge and solving and learning about product management along the way. So, yeah, I think this is a program if you want to learn about product management and how to become a PM and learn more things about that. The reason why I'm doing this is for me personally, it's just a learning experience and trying to improve on my product management skills. I am a PM uh, already, and that's my day job, so to say. But yeah, I'm here trying to do this challenge to learn more about product management and along the way learn more things and share it here on this YouTube channel for the nonsense. But yeah, to begin with, today we are at day 4 and we are looking at the topic called business outcomes and business goals and product outcomes. So here I think they've done a pretty good job so far the last 4 days in terms of content and providing us with details. But today we are trying to look at how product as a product manager you are responsible for business goals to be achieved and business goals that can be hit by the organization as a whole by leveraging the product as the main piece that you're trying to sell. You can sell services, you would be a service based organizations, but here as a product manager your job is essentially to build products that are scalable and generate revenue or generate shareholder value or value in general. That can be in the form of revenue, can be in the form of market size, and help build product outcomes. So a lot of times, firstly, let's look at the why behind building these products. I think over the last 3 days we've looked at what is product management, what a product manager does, but essentially when you get started with the product or trying to build a product, as we learned yesterday, we have a problem, we have a solution, and we try to reduce the gap for the problem that we see or we have identified in the market through some research or some insight that we've gained. And now is essentially the process of why are we trying to build this product, and getting down to the details and executing those and generating business outcomes out of those. So to get started here, they've mentioned, ever wondered why do we do that? And as essentially you as a PM are responsible to solve problems and make lives better, as it's mentioned here in the post. But essentially it starts with the why to begin with. And so we are trying to solve and we're trying to build a product that solves user problems and problems that they like to solve for, right? So it can be any problem that you face. It can be a personal problem that you're trying to solve, or it can be a problem that you have identified. You then go to the why of that. So every time as a PM, your day-to-day job is making decisions, and you are paid to make the decisions for the organization on behalf of the organization that complements or improves, help grow the business or the revenue or any metric that your north star metric that you want to achieve. Various organizations have various business outcomes, and business outcomes are translated into product goals essentially. And the product goals are part of a product roadmap, which is like a broader vision on a quarterly or like a broader time range. They are not very, they speak on a larger time window and are essentially trying to have answers for the whys that you experience or you have identified here, right? So there is this cool principle in the product management space which is called the 5 whys. So essentially when you come across a query, you look at why do we want to solve this. So if for example you have a query of trying to build a social media app, the first question is why do you want to build a social media app? So it's probably because you want to bring a change, or you want to essentially you have a different sort of idea or different format, where I mean, let's take an example of Twitter. It has increased its uh, tweet count. It was 280 words and now it has grown, and you can now write long form content, but you probably want to capture the audience which is still interested in writing those fiery tweets, one sentence tweets. You then ask why would people actually use this. And this is why at the end of the 5 whys you can go through the journey of understanding why are we even building a product, and that gives you more clarity and also understanding the problem and the type of solution that it might end up being. But yeah, essentially it starts with the why are we building products? We build products to solve problems. Why? Because we want to execute the product roadmap. Not necessarily, this is not the usual process. So the why behind we are building, for example, let's take a feature that you want to add, right? And usually it comes from the business side of things. So you have sales, or you have the field team, sales engineering, business BDRs, and all these other people who are actually talking to customers and have figured out what is the talk of the town and what is the market looking for. And they bring you this insight, and you as product management, looking at all the competitors and also at the market, you look at, let's do we really need to solve or build this feature, build this capability into our product? And then you ask a series of why questions. And if it aligns with the business outcomes and is really helping you reach, for example, if increasing revenue for the next quarter is the goal, your business team will have a series of requests or things that their customers that they have talked to have raised as potential things that they would like to see in the platform. You take those, you take that insight, you build and try to answer the whys from there, and essentially build a product roadmap out of it, right? And this product roadmap is, a lot of times it happens, you have to show this to the ELT or the leadership team as an organization, and PM is essentially responsible to help the business grow it. And it can be revenue in some cases, and it can be other things, right? But a large chunk of it is, yeah, how do we increase our average GMV, for example? How do we increase the contract rate or make customers more sticky onto our platform if it's not that sticky, or the user retention is low? How do we increase that? And take that query and that problem that you're facing, build it into the five whys and try to build features. Otherwise, essentially just having features and trying to build things out of that will build a feature soup for you, and they will have you will have features on the platform, but things are unordered and people are using some features, not all, and not really, it is not showcasing the whole value, right, of what your product was eventually meant to solve. And this happens more often than not, and you have to be very careful in terms of picking the queries or the problems you want to solve, because it is a lot of effort and a lot of people's time is involved, right? So as a PM, you are responsible for all the time wasted, or even if it turns out to be a bad product, you are responsible because it was your call to, for example, to build an x feature, but it not delivering the business goal that was mapped to it or to achieve. So this sort of problem happens. You should try to avoid it, obviously, and a lot of avoiding that is comes from asking these whys. And here they've given a simple example of these three. We want to build things that solves problem. Okay, you have why do you want, and you have all the whys listed down, and you make an objective call within your team or you as an individual. Then you go on to how do you execute this and ask more why questions, and how would we even deliver this, and what would be the easiest way to build this on an existing platform, or if should we even consider building a new platform or a new persona or a new um I mean segment altogether, and building a new category out of that, and sell it in that way, and increase sales. So there will be multiple questions along the way, and you as a PM or are responsible for this roadmap and delivering these business outcomes. These business outcomes are the end goal for you to achieve. And I've seen scenarios where the product roadmap essentially updates. It's not uh, signed and sealed once it's done. It always keeps iterating based on the priorities that come up, or the more insight that you see in the industry or in the market and from your customers, right? So product roadmaps change, they are meant to change. It's not always you can have like a broader set of items you want to achieve for a quarter to achieve the business goal, but the underlying things and the underlying pointers will obviously change and iterate and improve as you grow and have more insight. So yeah, that's essentially about business goals and how this product roadmap and product outcomes are built. A lot of organizations make the business goals product team's outcomes. And recently the trend has been where PM, product management, is also responsible for revenue and also responsible for growing sales or growing these other metrics on top of just the user engagement, user retention, and things like that. Because profitability is important. Even if you are a VC backed firm, you have the dollars in the bank, but it essentially is an is important for you to also think about how do you sustain and grow from here, right? So that's essentially what is business goals. I think they've also mentioned a few business goals and business outcomes that organizations have. I mean, to give you an example, in the current organization, I don't think I can specify, but yeah, there are outcomes obviously like any other organization to grow the revenue. So we had a few SKUs that we charge for, but we added a new SKU item into our product portfolio, right? That we started charging for separately, but it didn't turn out well, so we re-reviewed it, and I mean it's still ongoing process. I can't share the details, but yeah, I think things are iterated over time, and it's not necessarily that your first go is to adding a category within your platform does generate the business outcome you wanted it to. But it certainly helps because even if it was like a small experiment, I mean it always starts with a lot of data and number crunching and having like a solid insight for you to even get started with building it. And then you it's a, it always is like a few pieces come together and generate a lot of value. It can't be like a single piece. When the puzzle comes together and you start solving all the pieces, it helps grow the business outcome. So in my case, I've seen where things complementing each other and growing the value chain for a product to be built, right? So that's been the insight, and that comes from a very good product roadmap and how you align that. Because a product roadmap is showcased to like the business team. You also showcase it to the revenue team, who is responsible to then take the SKU, or if it is a new SKU, understanding that how do you, I mean, produce it and explain it to the field, and how do we market it, how do you sell it. There are multiple levers attached to that, and eventually it helps in growing the business from there. So yeah, that's about business goals. And then product outcomes, let's look at a few more details what the blog tells us, where product outcomes are basically things in control of the product team. Yeah, I mean it is obviously. And a lot of product outcomes, as I told earlier, are given, are very business specific in terms of growing net dollar retention, and how you, and primarily you also as a PM have to look at the human side of things, right? Because a product is at the end of the day will be used by end consumers or end personas that you have built the product for, and you as a PM are responsible to help bring value to any user who is trying to use your feature or something that you have built. And that comes with practice, and that comes with iterating over. And fortunately we have a very good team here, but I've seen other organizations that have very small engineering efforts where you can't run multiple projects parallelly. Here I have flexibility, and as the organization is bigger, the more scope you have to experiment and the more insights you can generate out of the data that is available to you. But essentially with product outcomes, they are tied to a business goal, they will be tied to a business goal, but a lot of the times it boils down to just understanding and solving for human needs, and what essentially your product was meant to do in the first place when it was built. But here they have given an example of revenue, where revenue can be tied to a product outcome, where the number of how many paid users can be a metric that you are tracking, number of amount of revenue that you can generate per user, right? So revenue, we as a product manage in a product management, you wouldn't really take revenue as like your north star metric. You would probably take the user count or something of that sort as like a metric, where I mean every to take example of YouTube or other organizations, right? They optimize for your attention. Airbnb, for example, optimizes for the cart value or the end purchase that you make. So there will be various sort of metrics or north star or things that you try to prioritize for, and it goes from there. But here we've given an example of revenue to begin with, and how that can translate and flow into our different product outcomes and grow from there. So yeah, the expanded view would be, if you look at revenue, you look at number of paid users, and for paid users, you see if these are the amount of paid users, how many out of them were, out of the total users, how many are paid, what was the conversion from free to a paid user. If you have like a PLG scheme where you have like a free tier, and then users can move up the tier to premium, enterprise, and like a custom tier where it can be bespoke, and you have like multiple support channels and things involved, or multiple humans involved, just to make sure the customer is, I mean is onboarded properly and is taken care of based on their requirements and how the product is. It's very different for various organizations and how they strategize on it. PLG essentially comes into play much later in the scheme, but to get focus, for example, in a SaaS B2B space, you look at optimizing for net dollar contract values and the amount of stickiness you can generate through your product. And in my experience, that has been through the sales led, and product being the centerpiece of it all, right? You use the sales team to demo and essentially show the value in the product. You have like cycle where you go into a POC and a POV, and then it grows from there, and eventually based on the value your product generates, the customer is essentially happy and tries to get onboarded, and then the contract cycles begin. And it is very different even for you having like a small customer, or onboarding like a Fortune 500 customer. uh, there are troubles with both sort of personas if you are building a product. But yeah, it goes from there, and you look at the number of users, how many, and of them are paid users in a different scenario, and like the conversion rate of this. So these are metrics. The blue ones are the eventual product outcomes that we are looking for, and it all ties down to revenue from there. But yeah, I think mapping business goals to product outcomes. So yeah, I think this image pretty much does what they've mentioned. And let's go through. If the business wants retention to increase, it will only happen when we will be able to change some of the user behavior. How do you change user behavior? Probably improving your UX. User behavior, uh, just making it more easier for a user to not think a lot when using your product, right? It should be seamless, and it should be very easy for a new user who is coming on to, for example, a platform for the first time, to understand how things are working there, and scaling it from there. And having not having a lot of documentation deep dives they need to go to, just to figure out like how to use and how what a specific feature or a button does. It should be seamless enough where you optimize for the UX and the user behavior being more convenient, and also like intuitive in terms of understanding what is going on essentially in the product, and not having a lot of levers that you need to pull just to make one action, just to perform a single action, right? So yeah, you mapping business goals to product outcomes is rather straightforward. Once you have the business outcome set, I think there is a resource that explains it much better. So yeah, so you have the business roadmap. You talk to your sales, you talk to your field and GTM teams, get sort of what where the business is trying to uh, prioritize or focus towards. For example, it can be, let's try to have net retention of 100%. We don't want to have any churned customers in our customer list that we have. So probably prioritizing for that will make you to also look at customers who are at the end of their contract cycle, working with them to have features that they want the product to have, such that they are happy, and you have your net churn rate is still at 100%, and you don't churn out any customers, right? And that is how the business roadmap and business outcomes come into play, and these business outcomes uh, are essentially translated into a product roadmap. And what and from the product roadmap you have individual sections, or if you have multiple features, there will be multiple sections within the product roadmap, and there will be needs, and for each need you would have probably an epic assigned with multiple features that help solve the need for. And then once the need is delivered to a customer, you can charge for that if you have like a contract cycle, or you can make turn it out into a separate SKU and charge for that feature specifically. So that is how it grows and how it goes from building the product. But essentially, business roadmap and then product roadmap is how things translate into. And you also have this other resource that was tied, talking about product outcomes and business outcomes for organizations. And if you look at here, product outcomes measure human behavior. This is probably the most important line or most important insight from today's sort of day, this 30-day of challenge, PM challenge, where product outcomes measure human behavior, which was essentially in the example of revenue that was given, was the amount of customers that have converted or the amount of users that have actually thought of the product bringing value and converting into paid users and using the product for longer term. So that is how it goes. And for you to grow, for example, this is also another opportunity solution tree. And for example, if the business outcome is to increase retention, what can improve the retention curve, right, for your product? So to use that, you probably have to fix a lot of UX issues, probably optimize for making the product easier to use and very intuitive, with not requiring a lot of, it should be self-serviced enough where the customer can use and build the product and go from there. So this is how business out, I think we could talk on and on, because there are frameworks here, and you also have a, this is more communication than it is about thinking about the product, where you actually have to understand the real underlying problem the business is trying to solve through the product and build features that generate the value from there. So this is how it goes in terms of a PM looking at uh, a goal or a target that has been put to them and looking at ways to achieve that. So the looking at ways to achieve that is through product features, which are part of a product roadmap, and the business outcomes essentially comes from the field, from insights, from talking to customers, and retention from there. So yeah, I think that's probably mostly it for us for today on what business goals are and how product outcomes are defined for a PM. This usually comes up when you are like in a senior role, probably at the director and VP and the CPO level, where the CPO is essentially more tied to understanding user insights, market, and the VPs and everything from there on are essentially trying, are given a target out of the business outcomes and build that into a product roadmap, and then everyone else is aligned to build these features and go from there. So yeah, if the pieces come out together and they do well and complement each other, you have a product that improves and scales, and then you have the business outcomes automatically achieved. But a lot of this ties down into how uh, things are translated from business outcomes to product outcomes, and how do you then execute and deliver those, right? So a lot of fine tuning and process management is involved, but it essentially is to grow the business, to grow the customer count you have, the customer base you have, and scale from there. So yeah, I think that does it for today, and we'll end this here. But yeah, I think we could probably talk a few more details around other things of net retention and talking about other goals. But yeah, we'll look at the next chapters and go from there.